The artificial gravity in Helios Station flickered like a dying heartbeat as Kai Mercer stared at the ceiling of his isolation cell. 374 days of solitary confinement had taught him to count the seconds between power fluctuations, a small victory against the monotony of wrongful imprisonment. As the former Earth ambassador to the Galactic Coalition, he'd navigated complex diplomatic relations for 15 years before being framed for espionage during the Orion Accords. Prisoner 12J, stand for inspection, a cold, mechanized voice commanded through the intercom. Kai rose to his feet, muscles protesting after hours of stillness. His once pristine diplomatic uniform had been replaced with a drab gray jumpsuit that hung from his leaner frame. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing not the usual automated drone but a living guard, an Etherian. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with luminescent azure skin that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, Officer Nix Devora regarded him with 4 silver eyes. Her kind were renowned for their absolute adherence to law, physical prowess, and most relevantly to Kai, their profound distrust of humans. Protocol violation, Kai remarked, finding his voice rusty from disuse. In-person inspections aren't scheduled until. Silence, human, Nix interrupted, her dual-toned voice reverberating with contempt. Your species' penchant for deception necessitates additional scrutiny. Before Kai could respond, the station lurched violently. Both he and the guard were thrown against the wall as emergency sirens wailed. The artificial gravity failed completely, sending them floating into the air. Chunks of ceiling broke free, one striking Nix squarely in the shoulder. She cried out, a sound like crystalline bells shattering. What's happening? Kai demanded, instinctively grabbing a fixed pipe to anchor himself. Nix activated her wrist communicator but received only static. Prison breach protocol initiated, a distant automated voice announced throughout the facility. All security personnel report to emergency stations. Containment failure imminent. Another powerful tremor rocked the station, this one accompanied by the distant sound of explosions. The lights failed, plunging them into darkness before emergency illumination bathed everything in crimson. Through the open cell door, Kai could hear the unmistakable sounds of chaos, shouting, running, the discharge of energy weapons. The prisoners are rioting, Nix stated, struggling to activate her gravity boots. Kai noticed the unnatural angle of her left shoulder dislocated or broken. Her hand kept reaching for her weapon, but her injury prevented her from drawing it effectively. When the next impact came, it brought with it a cascade of debris. Kai acted on instinct, lunging toward the Etherian and pushing her clear as a massive support beam crashed down, missing her but blocking the cell doorway. In the process, Kai's jumpsuit tore on a jagged edge of metal, revealing the diplomatic corps tattoo on his forearm, the mark of an oath to protect life in all its forms. Nix's 4 eyes fixed on the symbol momentarily before meeting his gaze. You saved me. Reflex, Kai replied tersely. I spent 15 years preventing interstellar incidents. Hard habit to break. Another explosion rocked the station, closer this time. The remaining lights flickered, and through the damaged wall Kai could see the void of space separated only by the asteroid's rapidly failing integrity fields. We have perhaps 20 minutes before complete structural failure, Nix said, wincing as she touched her injured shoulder. The emergency shuttle bay is 3 levels down. Then we'd better start moving, Kai said, sizing up the blocked doorway and finding a gap they could squeeze through. Unless you'd prefer to die alone with your prejudice intact. Something changed in Nix's silver eyes, not quite respect but reassessment. I cannot navigate the station alone with this injury. And I don't know the access codes for the emergency systems, Kai acknowledged. Looks like we're stuck with each other. With surprising gentleness for his hardened hands, Kai helped stabilize Nix's shoulder, using strips torn from his bedding to create a makeshift sling. The guard's skin was cool to the touch, her pulse visible as waves of light beneath her azure surface. I know you believe I'm a spy, Kai said as they prepared to leave the cell. But right now that doesn't matter. We survive first, judge each other later. Nix nodded stiffly, agreed, temporary alliance. As they squeezed through the gap into the corridor beyond, the prison around them continued to fall apart. Somewhere in the distance, they could hear the predatory shouts of freed inmates hunting for guards. The station that had been designed to be inescapable was now a death trap, and their only way out was through its breaking heart. Kai looked at Nix, the guard who had despised him moments ago and was now his only ally in survival. Ready. She straightened her spine, dignity intact despite her injury. Lead on, diplomat. Together, they stepped into the crimson-lit chaos of Helios Station's final hours. The service corridors of Helios Station groaned like a dying beast as Kai and Nix navigated through them. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across their path, and the distant sounds of prisoner riots echoed through the failing infrastructure. "Your shoulder, how's the pain?" Kai asked as they paused at a junction, his voice barely above a whisper. Nix's luminescent patterns pulsed with each labored breath. Etherian physiology processes pain differently than humans. It is manageable. Kai read the stubborn set of her jaw. Manageable means excruciating in universal translation. A faint flicker of amusement crossed her face before she suppressed it. "The maintenance shaft ahead leads to the security level," she said, changing the subject. "From there we can access emergency systems." As they moved forward, the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, sending them floating momentarily before slamming them back to the floor. Kai caught Nyx before her injured shoulder could impact the ground, his arm wrapping protectively around her waist. Their faces came within inches of each other, her silver eyes widening at the proximity. "Your reflexes are unexpected," she admitted as they separated. 15 years of diplomatic functions on 26 different gravity standards, Kai replied with a shrug. "You learn to stay on your feet or embarrass the entire human race." The humor vanished from his face as shouts echoed from a nearby corridor. 3 escaped prisoners rounded the corner, a hulking draconian with scaled skin, flanked by 2 humanoid figures with the telltale neural implants of the Syndicate Assassin Guild. "Well, well," the draconian growled, baring serrated teeth. "An Etherian guard and a human in one lucky find." Nyx reached for her weapon with her good arm, but the neural-implanted assassins were faster, lunging forward with horrifying speed. Kai reacted instinctively, grabbing a loose pipe from the damaged wall and swinging it in a wide arc. The metal connected with the first assassin's temple, dropping them unconscious. The second assassin tackled Kai to the ground while the draconian advanced on Nyx. Despite her injury, the Etherian guard moved with fluid grace, evading the massive alien's grasp and delivering a precise strike to a nerve cluster on its neck with her good arm. The draconian staggered but remained upright. Meanwhile, Kai struggled beneath the assassin, whose neural implants pulsed with deadly intent. The prisoner's fingers closed around Kai's throat, cutting off his oxygen. Through darkening vision, he noticed an exposed electrical conduit beside them. With his remaining strength, he grabbed the assassin's neural implant and jammed it against the live wire. The attacker convulsed and collapsed beside him. Gasping for breath, Kai turned to see Nyx finally bring down the draconian with a precisely aimed kick to its knee joint. Silence fell over the corridor as they both stood amid their fallen attackers, breathing heavily. "Where did a diplomat learn to fight like that?" Nyx asked, her voice tinged with newfound respect. Kai rubbed his bruised throat. "Not all diplomatic missions end peacefully. Sometimes negotiations fail." Before Nyx could respond, the station's emergency system crackled to life. Atmospheric integrity at 38%. Estimated time to critical failure 12 minutes. "We need to keep moving," Kai said, retrieving the stun baton from one of the unconscious prisoners. Nyx nodded, then winced as the movement jarred her shoulder. Without comment, Kai moved to her side, gently supporting her weight as they continued through the corridor. The next section of the station was in even worse condition. Exposed wiring sparked dangerously from the ceiling, and several passages had completely collapsed. The life support systems were failing, the air grew thinner with each breath. "Tell me about the charges against you," Nyx said suddenly as they maneuvered around a fallen beam. "The espionage." Kai's expression hardened. "Does it matter now? If we are to die together, human, I would know if I perish alongside a criminal or an innocent." Kai was silent for a moment before answering. "The Orion Accords were meant to bring peace to the outer colonies. Someone didn't want that peace. Classified information was leaked, sabotaging the negotiations. I was the convenient scapegoat." "You maintained your innocence throughout your trial," Nyx observed. "For all the good it did me," bitterness edged his voice. "Your justice system had already decided humans couldn't be trusted." They reached a security door that had been partially melted by what appeared to be industrial acid, likely from another escaped prisoner. Beyond it lay the remains of what had once been the guard station. Bodies in security uniforms lay scattered across the floor. Nyx's luminescent patterns dimmed in mourning. "My squadron," she whispered. Kai gave her a moment of silence before gently steering her toward the main console. "Can you access the station schematics from here? Find us a safe route to the shuttle bay." With visible effort, Nyx composed herself and approached the console. Her 4 eyes scanned the readouts with practiced efficiency. The main passages are blocked or compromised, but there's an alternative route through the hydroponic section. As she downloaded the schematics to her wrist device, Kai searched the room, gathering supplies. 2 emergency oxygen masks, a medkit, and an access keycard from one of the fallen guards. When he returned, he found Nick staring at a security feed showing the prison warden, Director Malik, hastily downloading files while systematically destroying others. That's odd behavior during an evacuation, Kai noted. Indeed, Nix's eyes narrowed. His priority should be coordinating rescue efforts, not data management. A new tremor shook the station, more violent than before. The console sparked and died, plunging them into the dim emergency lighting once again. We need to keep moving, Kai said, helping Nix to her feet. Whatever the director is hiding will have to wait. As they left the security room, Nix's hand briefly touched Kai's arm. For what it's worth, human, your actions today do not match those of the criminal described in your file. Kai met her gaze, finding something he hadn't expected, doubt in her certainty of his guilt. And you're not the cold, unfeeling Etherian I was told your kind always is. Perhaps, Nix replied with the faintest hint of a smile. We both have misconceptions to correct. Together they entered the darkened corridor, their uneasy alliance evolving with each step through the dying station. Behind them, a security monitor flickered back to life momentarily, revealing Director Malik placing explosive charges at a structural support pillar before the screen went black forever. The hydroponic section of Helios Station had once been its crown jewel, a testament to human-alien cooperation in creating sustainable life support systems in deep space. Now, it was a jungle of overgrown vegetation twisted by the failing environmental controls. Steam hissed from ruptured irrigation pipes, creating an eerie fog that limited visibility to mere feet. The humidity should help your shoulder, Kai noted as they moved between rows of luminescent flora. Etherian tissue regenerates faster in moisture-rich environments, doesn't it? Nix's head tilted slightly. You're familiar with my species' physiology. I represented Earth during the Etherian admission to the Galactic Coalition, Kai replied, carefully holding back a thorny vine for her to pass. Learned everything I could about your people. Respect begins with understanding. Something changed in her silver gaze, a softening perhaps. Yet your file claims you worked against Etherian interests. My file is a work of fiction, Kai said flatly, written by someone who wanted me out of the way. Before she could respond, a mechanical grinding sound echoed through the chamber. The hydroponic lighting system surged to full power momentarily, revealing they weren't alone. Across the garden, 3 figures in environmental suits were hunched over a datapad connected to the station's central irrigation system. Maintenance workers, Kai whispered. Nix's eyes narrowed. No, those aren't standard-issue suits. Her luminescent patterns dimmed automatically, an evolutionary camouflage response. And that's a delivery system for biological agents, not irrigation. They crouched behind dense foliage, watching as one of the figures extracted a vial of glowing purple liquid and prepared to insert it into the distribution system. Kai recognized the substance immediately. Neurotoxin, he breathed, specifically designed for carbon-based life forms. It would kill everyone aboard except silicon-based species. Including Etherians, Nix added grimly, were carbon-silicon hybrids. Understanding dawned on Kai's face. This wasn't a prison break, it's an extinction event. An alarm blared from the intruder's equipment. One of them looked up sharply, scanning the hydroponics bay with a sensor device. Life signs detected, a mechanically altered voice announced. 2 signatures, Sector 7. Go, Kai urged Nix toward a maintenance hatch. I'll distract them. That's suicide, she hissed, gripping his arm with surprising strength. Better one death than genocide. He gently pried her fingers loose. Get to the shuttle bay, someone needs to warn the coalition. Before she could protest further, Kai sprinted in the opposite direction, deliberately making noise to draw attention away from her. The saboteurs immediately gave chase, abandoning their equipment. Nix hesitated only a moment before slipping through the maintenance hatch, but instead of heading toward the shuttles, she circled back through the air ducts. Kai led his pursuers deep into the hydroponics maze, using his knowledge of plant cultivation to his advantage. He toppled shelves of nutrient solution, creating obstacles behind him. When cornered at last, he grabbed a pressurized canister and hurled it at his attackers. The resulting cloud of fertilizer particles temporarily blinded them, giving him precious seconds to climb into the ventilation system. He crawled through the narrow space, metal groaning beneath his weight until he reached a junction. Below him, the saboteurs had returned to their equipment, hurriedly preparing to release the toxin. Kai searched desperately for something to stop them, finding nothing but his own determination. He was preparing to drop down and physically prevent them when a flash of blue movement caught his eye. Nix emerged silently from another vent shaft, her injured arm still in its makeshift sling, but her right hand now holding a weapon she must have retrieved from her fallen comrades. With 3 precision shots, she incapacitated the saboteurs before they could release the toxin. As they collapsed, she looked up and met Kai's gaze through the vent grating. "I thought I told you to get to the shuttle," he said as he lowered himself down to join her. Giving orders to an Etherian security officer, she replied with unexpected warmth in her dual-toned voice. "That's a violation of at least 3 interstellar protocols." Kai couldn't help but smile, added to my sentence. Together, they approached the unconscious saboteurs. Kai removed one of their helmets, revealing a pale humanoid face with distinctive scarring along the jawline. "Syndicate mercenary," Nix confirmed, "high tier." "Expensive," Kai added, examining the equipment. "Too expensive for a common criminal organization." He accessed the datapad they'd been using. "These aren't just prison schematics, they're classified security protocols for the entire Galactic Coalition prison system." Nix leaned over his shoulder to view the screen, her face close enough that he could feel the cool radiation of her skin. The authorization code, it's Director Malik's. "The Warden is behind this," Kai scrolled through the files. "But why destroy his own facility?" "Because Helios Station isn't just a prison," Nix replied, pointing to a hidden file directory. "It's a testing ground." The files revealed the truth. Director Malik had been conducting illegal biological experiments on inmates for years, developing designer pathogens for an extremist faction that believed non-humanoid species were a threat to galactic stability. The asteroid's destruction would eliminate both the evidence and any witnesses. "My conviction," Kai whispered, "it wasn't about the Orion Accords at all. I was investigating unusual pathogen outbreaks in the outer colonies. I was getting close to linking them to someone high up in Coalition security." "And you became another test subject," Nix finished, her patterns pulsing with anger. "Many of us suspected something was wrong with certain prisoners' deaths, but our concerns were dismissed." Kai downloaded the evidence to Nix's wrist device just as another violent tremor shook the station. Warning systems blared, "Critical structural failure imminent. All personnel evacuate immediately." "We need to move," Kai urged, "the shuttle bay." "Will be heavily guarded," Nix finished. "Director Malik won't leave witnesses." Their eyes met in silent communication, a plan forming between them without words. Kai gathered the neurotoxin neutralizer from the saboteur's equipment while Nix collected additional weapons. As they prepared to leave, another tremor sent them both stumbling forward. Kai caught Nix against his chest, steadying her. For a moment they remained there, the human and the Etherian, their faces inches apart. Something unspoken passed between them, recognition, perhaps, of how quickly adversaries had become something more. "Your shoulder," Kai murmured, noticing her sling had loosened. "It's healing," she replied softly. "You were right about the humidity." Neither moved to separate immediately. Nix's luminescent patterns shifted to a deeper blue, a response Kai recognized from his diplomatic studies as an Etherian indication of emotional intensity. "We should go," she finally said, though she made no immediate move to pull away. "Yes," he agreed, equally still. The station groaned around them as if impatient with their hesitation. Finally, they separated, but something had irrevocably changed between them. They were no longer just allies of convenience, they were partners in a fight for justice and survival. Together, they headed toward the shuttle bay, leaving behind the evidence of conspiracy, and carrying with them a new, fragile trust that neither had expected to find in the dying heart of Helios Station. The route to the shuttle bay took Kai and Nix through the prison's medical section, now abandoned and eerily silent compared to the chaos elsewhere. Emergency lighting bathed the sterile surfaces in crimson, and the occasional spark from damaged equipment cast fleeting shadows across the walls. "We need to treat your injuries properly," Nix said, guiding Kai toward a medical station. The skirmish with the saboteurs had left him with a deep gash across his forearm. "There's no time," he protested, but she was already searching through supply cabinets. "5 minutes could mean the difference between you escaping alive or bleeding out in transit," she countered, her tone brooking no argument. Her own shoulder had improved significantly. The bioluminescent patterns around the injury glowed with increased intensity as her natural healing accelerated. Kai reluctantly sat on an examination table while Nix applied a regenerative gel to his wound. Her touch was surprisingly gentle for a being he'd once thought incapable of tenderness. "You've done this before," he observed as she skillfully dressed the injury. "I served as a field medic during the Proxima conflict," she replied, "before becoming a security officer." "The war that nearly erupted between our species," Kai said quietly. I was part of the diplomatic team that negotiated the peace. Nix's four silver eyes met his. Then we stood on opposite sides of the same conflict, working toward the same goal without knowing it. And now here we are, he smiled faintly. Here we are, she echoed, finishing the bandage but not immediately withdrawing her hand from his arm. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken thoughts. Kai slowly reached up with his free hand, hesitating before gently tracing one of the luminescent patterns on her cheek with his fingertips. Nix's patterns brightened at his touch, her cool skin warming slightly. I've never, she began, touched a human this way, he finished. Felt this way about anyone, she corrected softly. Kai leaned forward, cautiously closing the distance between them. Nix didn't pull away. Their lips met, human warmth against Etherian coolness, a perfect counterbalance. The kiss deepened as her arms encircled him, her luminescent patterns pulsing in rhythmic waves that seemed to flow between them both. A violent explosion somewhere in the station jolted them apart. The medical bays systems flickered and an automated voice announced, "Atmospheric breach detected in sectors 12 through 15. Estimated time to complete station failure, 7 minutes." Reality crashed back upon them. "We need to move," Kai said, reluctantly pulling away and retrieving their gathered weapons. Nix nodded, her professional demeanor returning though her patterns still glowed more intensely than before. "The shuttle bay is through the administrative section. Director Malik's office may have additional evidence we can use against him." They moved swiftly through the corridors, encountering surprising resistance, not from escaped prisoners but from security drones programmed to eliminate witnesses. Their cooperation had evolved into seamless teamwork. Kai would draw fire while Nix used her precision shooting to disable the drones, then they would switch roles without needing to communicate. When they reached Director Malik's office, they found it sealed but not empty. Through the reinforced viewing panel, they could see the director methodically destroying physical records, his back to the door. "Can you override the lock?" Kai asked. "Not necessary," Nix replied, placing her palm against the security scanner. "As second in command of security, I have clearance." The door slid open and Director Malik spun around, his hand immediately reaching for a weapon. He froze when he saw who had entered. "Officer Devora," he said, carefully neutral. "I'm pleased to see you survived, and you've captured the escaped prisoner Mercer. Excellent work." "Save it, Malik," Kai said coldly. "We know about the experiments, the planned neurotoxin release, all of it." The director's expression hardened. A dangerous accusation from a convicted spy, one no one will believe. "They will when they see the evidence," Nix stated, her weapon trained steadily on him, "and learn that you orchestrated this disaster to cover your crimes." "Evidence?" Malik laughed bitterly. "There will be no evidence left when this station breaks apart, and no witnesses." With surprising speed, he pressed a concealed button on his desk. Armored panels slammed down over the office doors and windows as an auxiliary power system engaged, isolating them from the rest of the failing station. Gas began hissing from hidden vents. "A private execution chamber," Malik explained, fitting an oxygen mask over his own face. "For inconvenient individuals, you'll be dead in minutes while I escape in my private shuttle." Kai and Nix shared a quick glance before springing into action. Nix fired at the director, forcing him to take cover while Kai attacked the ventilation system, trying to block the gas flow. The room began to fill with the toxic vapor despite their efforts. "The masks," Kai called, remembering the emergency oxygen supplies they'd gathered earlier. They each donned one, buying precious minutes. Director Malik, realizing his plan was failing, triggered another system. Part of the office floor retracted, revealing a private escape tunnel. "This station was designed to contain the galaxy's most dangerous criminals," he shouted over the alarm klaxons. "Did you really think I wouldn't have a way out?" He made a dash for the tunnel, but Nix intercepted him with inhuman speed. They grappled at the edge of the opening, Malik fighting with the desperation of a cornered man. He managed to strike Nix's healing shoulder, causing her to cry out in pain. Kai surged forward, but not before Malik had drawn a vibroblade and slashed at Nix's abdomen. She staggered back, luminescent ichor seeping from the wound. Kai caught her, lowering her gently to the floor before turning to face the director with cold fury. "You should have stayed in your cell, diplomat," Malik sneered, advancing with the blade. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Kai, drawing on years of diplomatic protection training, dodged the first strike and countered with precise movements. Each blow connected with surgical precision, not to kill but to disable. Within moments, Director Malik lay unconscious at the edge of his escape tunnel. Kai rushed back to Nix, heart pounding with fear at the sight of her wound. Stay with me, he urged, applying pressure to stem the flow of luminescent fluid. Her four silver eyes focused on his face. The evidence, she managed, in his private terminal, get it. Fighting his reluctance to leave her side, Kai quickly accessed the director's computer. The files confirmed everything: the illegal experiments, the framing of Kai to silence his investigation, the planned destruction of the station to eliminate evidence. He downloaded it all to a secure data chip. When he returned to Nyx, her luminescence had dimmed alarmingly. Got it, he assured her, gathering her carefully into his arms. Now we're getting out of here together. The escape tunnel, she murmured, gesturing weakly toward the opening where Malik still lay unconscious. What about him? Kai asked, looking at the director. Nyx's expression hardened despite her pain. Justice will be served properly, we take him with us. Despite everything Malik had done, Kai nodded in agreement. Together they had discovered a conspiracy and survived the collapse of a prison built to be inescapable. They would finish this the right way, with truth and justice, not vengeance. As the station entered its final death throes around them, Kai carried Nyx into the escape tunnel, dragging the unconscious director behind them. Their path to freedom, and to a future neither had imagined possible, lay ahead in the darkness. The escape tunnel led them to a concealed hangar housing a sleek private shuttle, Director Malik's insurance against disaster. As Kai carried Nyx aboard, the station's final automated warning echoed through the communication system: critical failure imminent, complete structural collapse in 3 minutes. Kai gently laid Nyx in the medical bay before securing the still unconscious Director Malik in the shuttle's holding cell. The wound across Nyx's abdomen continued to seep luminescent fluid despite the emergency treatment he'd applied. The medical unit, she directed weakly, her voice barely audible. It's calibrated for multiple species. Kai activated the system, watching anxiously as diagnostic beams scanned her body. You need to hang on, he urged, grasping her hand. I didn't break out of the galaxy's most secure prison just to lose you now. A faint smile touched her lips. Technically, diplomat, I believe I broke you out. Details, he replied with forced lightness, relief washing over him as the medical system began administering treatment. Synthesized plasma specifically designed for Etherian physiology flowed into her wound, sealing it with a soft blue glow. The shuttle rocked violently as another explosion tore through the dying station. Kai rushed to the cockpit, finding the controls surprisingly familiar. A standard Coalition diplomatic vessel configuration, likely stolen or repurposed by Malik. Hold on, he called back to Nyx as he initiated launch protocols. This might get rough. The hangar doors were already failing, partially blocked by debris. Kai engaged maximum thrust, sending the shuttle scraping through the narrowing gap just as flames engulfed the space behind them. The viewscreen filled with the spectacular and terrible sight of Helios Station breaking apart, massive chunks of the asteroid prison drifting into the void, internal explosions silhouetting the destruction against the backdrop of distant stars. Once they reached a safe distance, Kai set the autopilot and returned to Nyx's side. The medical system had stabilized her condition, her luminescent patterns were regaining their vibrant intensity. Without the immediate threat of death pushing them forward, an awkward silence settled between them. You're a surprisingly good pilot, Nyx finally said, for a diplomat. You're surprisingly bad at accepting medical treatment, he countered with a smile, for a former field medic. A moment passed before she asked the question that hung between them. What happens now, Kai? He sat beside her, their shoulders touching. Now we have evidence clearing my name and implicating Malik in crimes against multiple species. We take it to the Coalition Security Council. And after that, her four silver eyes studied his face. I am still a security officer, you are still my prisoner. Were, Kai emphasized, past tense, I think saving each other's lives repeatedly might have changed that dynamic. He reached over, tentatively touching the luminescent patterns along her arm. They brightened in response, flowing toward his fingertips as if drawn to his touch. There's no precedent for this, Nyx whispered, a relationship between an Etherian and a human. I spent 15 years as a diplomat creating precedents, Kai replied. It's what I do best. She moved closer, her cool skin a refreshing counterbalance to his human warmth. My people will not understand, many still harbor prejudice against humans. And many humans fear what they don't understand about Etherians, he acknowledged. We could change that together. The shuttle's communication system suddenly activated, a Priority 1 Coalition signal breaking through. A stern voice demanded identification and intentions. Kai shared a look with Nyx before responding. This is Ambassador Kai Mercer and Security Chief Nyx Devora. We have in custody Director Malik of Helios Station, along with evidence of his crimes against the Coalition. Request immediate secure channel to the Security Council. There was a moment of stunned silence before the voice returned. Ambassador Mercer is listed as deceased in the Helios Station incident. Please verify identity. Transmitting diplomatic credentials and biometric verification now, Kai replied, sending the encrypted data, along with preliminary evidence files regarding Director Malik's conspiracy. While they waited for verification, Nix's hand found his. They listed you as dead, she said quietly. They never intended for any evidence of their experiments to escape. Which makes us rather inconvenient survivors, Kai agreed. The communication officer returned, their tone markedly different. Ambassador, verification confirmed. A security escort is being dispatched to your location. The council awaits your testimony. A pause. It's good to have you back from the dead, sir. As the transmission ended, Kai turned to Nix. I should warn you, this won't be easy. Powerful people were involved in this conspiracy. They'll fight to discredit us both. I am Etherian, she replied with quiet dignity. We do not shy from difficult paths when they are the right ones. Her luminescent patterns shifted to a deep indigo, a color Kai had never seen before. Besides, I find I prefer fighting alongside you rather than against you. That's fortunate, he said, leaning closer, because I don't intend to let you out of my sight anytime soon. Someone needs to make sure your wounds heal properly. And someone needs to ensure you don't get yourself falsely imprisoned again, she countered, her dual-toned voice taking on a warmth he once would have thought impossible from an Etherian. Their lips met once more, this time without the urgency of impending disaster. The kiss deepened, a bridge between worlds that politics and prejudice had kept apart. When they finally separated, Nix's luminescence had spread to where their skin had touched, a faint blue glow lingering on Kai's fingertips, a phenomenon neither had heard of before. It seems, Nix said with wonder, that there is much we have to discover about each other. A lifetime's worth, Kai agreed, watching as Director Malik stirred in his cell. But first we have justice to deliver. Through the viewscreen, they could see the Coalition security vessels approaching, lights flashing against the darkness of space. Ahead lay uncertainty, political battles, testimony before the council, and the long process of healing old wounds, both personal and between their peoples. But as Kai and Nix stood together, watching the last fragments of Helios Station disappear behind them, they faced that future not as prisoner and guard, not as human and Etherian, but as partners who had found something neither expected in the unlikeliest of places. A bond that transcended the barriers between their worlds. Nix's fingers intertwined with his. Ready, diplomat. Kai smiled, squeezing her hand gently. Ready. Together, they guided the shuttle toward the waiting Coalition ships and whatever lay beyond. A future neither of them could have imagined when the first tremors shook Helios Station, but one they now couldn't imagine facing apart.